we're filming here on a sunny Sunday morning, which can only mean one thing. It's the Pattaya City Expats Club. They meet every Sunday at the Tavern by the Sea, which is part of the Amari right here on Beach Road. They have a variety of guest speakers who cover a variety of topics. The people who come here, the guests and the members, are predominantly, not predominantly, but a lot of them are Americans. So the guest speaker today was very favourably welcomed. His name is Paul Herman, and you are the, let me get this right, American Citizen Services Unit Chief.
Yes.
From the American Embassy in Bangkok. Paul, welcome to Pattaya. I believe this is pretty much the first time you've had anything of more than a few hours here.
That's true. We come down here quite often to help U.S. citizens, but I'm usually more just in the range of a few hours. So this is the first time I've actually had some time in Pattaya, and it's a lovely place. Glad to be here. So.
Okay. I think just to sort of sum up what you were telling people today, you were kind of really outlining the remit of what you can do and what you cannot do.
Correct.
Would you like to give us some of those sort of key points for our viewers, please?
Sure. Well, the U.S. Embassy is here to assist U.S. citizens in need. One of the chief responsibilities of any embassy, including the one in Bangkok, is the welfare of U.S. citizens abroad. And so we try to help U.S. citizens where we can. However, we ask that U.S. citizens not have overblown expectations of what we can do for them. For example, we don't have the resources to provide funding for them should they find themselves destitute or, say, in a hospital. We cannot pay hospital fees. There's a whole range of things that we cannot do in that order, but we can help communicate with relatives in the U.S. if you need funding. If you lose your passport, we can issue a new passport, sometimes an emergency passport. We can, if you're arrested, we ask that the police contact us so we can make sure that you are being treated okay in prison. If you have a child born here, we can document that child. So there's a whole range of things we can do for U.S. citizens, but there are, unfortunately, certain things we cannot do. So,
well, one of the interesting things that you brought up, which is something of a stumbling block in a sense, is the Privacy Act,
right.
and how that affects certain situations when you have an American citizen here who is maybe not destitute, but is seriously unwell.
Right.
But the Privacy Act puts you in a position where you might not be able to give the help that you would automatically want to give.
Well, we are bound by very strict privacy laws, and which this basically means that we cannot talk about a U.S. citizen unless that citizen gives us express written consent to do so. So very often if somebody needs us to communicate with family, they need to provide us written consent to do that. And sometimes they don't want to do that. Sometimes they don't want their family to know they're in Thailand, or they don't want their family to know the situation they've ended up with. So it's difficult for us to communicate with family or friends who might call us checking on their welfare. So we just ask that Americans either that find themselves in difficulty or in Thailand, or family in the U.S. that are concerned about them, understand that sometimes we cannot share all the information that you might want because we must respect people's privacy. And it really comes down to that. And that is something we take very seriously. And in every single case, we will ask about privacy and whether we have Privacy Act available, whether we have a waiver from those people to talk about their cases. And so we ask that people that are in trouble give us permission to talk to their family or friends if they are really seeking help, because that's where they're going to get their help from first and foremost. So.
Now, you outlined at the beginning that there are roughly, I believe, 600,000 American citizens.
60,000, according to Thai immigration, the figures they've given us, about 60,000 living throughout the country who are here on visas that are longer than your average tourist visa. So that could be retirees, that could also be students or people here on business visas, marriage visas, what have you, but long-term residents, quote unquote. So
actually, that's lower than I would have thought. I mean, especially when you put it against the figure of 800,000 who visit Thailand, American citizens who visit Thailand last year.
Well, the 800,000 number is, it's difficult to sort of gauge because many Americans come in several times a year. So also, there are many people that live here long-term, not on long-term visas, unfortunately. And those numbers are hard to gauge as well because, they might do border runs. So they stay here long-term. There's also quite a few Americans, quite a few foreigners in general that stay here, overstay their visas, which is unfortunate. And we don't recommend people do that, but it is a fact of life. They are here. So it's really hard to nail down the actual number of Americans that are in Thailand. And I mean, there's a lot obviously here in Pattaya. There's a lot down south at Phuket, Koh Samui, up in Isan, up in Chiang Mai. They're spread all over the place. And everywhere I go, I find Americans, which is great. But yeah, you're right. It's difficult to really know the exact number of Americans here.
Now, you outlined some of the notary aspects that you take care of, as you mentioned. One of the other challenges that you brought up in your talk is when someone dies without a will,
right,
and the challenges that that can bring identifying the next of kin. Right. Give us some of the scenarios when this happens.
Well, when someone passes away, they we have U.S. citizens here who may have been older. They may have had a Thai wife or a Thai girlfriend. They might have families in the U.S. This will be their second family here in Thailand. And so when they pass away without instructions in a will or some other document, it's difficult for us to know what needs to be done. If the family in the U.S. has one wish, but the family in Thailand has another, be it with the disposal of the estate or the disposal of the remains, are we going to do cremation or burial? These things are very complex for us to deal with in talking to the family, because sometimes the families will get into disputes, and the U.S. Embassy is not here to make decisions for them, but sometimes it causes paralysis, and people's cases can drag on, even though death cases usually need to be handled fairly quickly. But if there's not clear instructions from the person who passes away, it can make things very difficult on those they love who are left behind. And so we really encourage people to let their wishes be known ahead of time. If they wish to make a will, certainly consult with the proper people, attorneys and whatnot, to ensure that the will is properly written, to ensure that that will states what will happen with the estate, what will happen with the remains. Try to leave no questions unanswered, and then that's the best way to handle it.
Yeah. Because you outlined that there are a number of cases where people have had interesting sort of personal lives.
Well, people don't realize sometimes about how the law works, and they might have had a wife in the U.S. that they never actually ended up divorcing, and then they come here and have a girlfriend, and then they may believe that that girlfriend will get everything, and they think that's what she deserves, but they don't realize that because they never got divorced, it's actually the wife in the U.S. that's the next of kin and will make all the decisions. So also a lot of families, a lot of people that come here, they cut off all ties with their family in the U.S. They haven't talked to them in many, many years. And all of a sudden we have to contact that family and bring them into the process because they are the official legal next of kin. But they have not had any contact with the person who passed away for decades. And it makes things very uncomfortable, very complicated for people. So these are all things that people need to consider when, deciding on these end-of-life issues. So.
Today, after your talk, we had a very lively Q&A session. Lots of people wanting to ask you questions. Some of them are of a general nature and almost sort of interlinked. But then when we came outside waiting to do the interview, again, a lot of people wanting to speak to you. Mm-hmm. I guess this is the very nature of your job. But you have a way that you can actually interface with these people because you've got one of your outreach days, is that called?
Well, we have what are called outreaches. So essentially we come to various places throughout Thailand to provide services, be they notary, passport services. We come to Pattaya 4 times a year. And you can find that information on our website. The next time we'll be here is in January. We also go to places like Khon Kaen, Udon Thani, and Phuket. So you don't have to always travel to the embassy. If you have a fairly simple matter you'd like to get our assistance with, we can usually do that during our outreach. Other things like reports of birth, you have to come to the embassy, unfortunately. But for the majority of services we provide, we can do that at our outreach. So we really recommend people check our times, when we'll be here, and they can just save themselves a trip to Bangkok. So.
And you also give some good advice for I was a guy asking about getting his passport delivered, because we always worry about the mail here in Thailand, but you outlined that you'd never heard of a passport going missing.
I've never heard of a passport going missing, but people do want to be safe and they want to pick it up, which is fine also. They can do that. We can also bring the passports to our outreach. So if you applied for a passport at Bangkok and you live here in Pattaya and you don't want to actually go to Bangkok and pick it up, let us know. We'll put it in our bag and bring it down with us next time we come. As long as you don't need it quickly, if you can wait 2 months or whatever, then we'll bring it here and give it to you here. But up to you. We try to be as customer service friendly and flexible as we can. So yeah, any way they want to do it. I'll just say that anybody that has any questions about any of this, they can contact us by our email, acsbkk@state.gov. We have 2 people dedicated in our office just to answering questions that come through that email, and we'll get an answer back to you on any question, be it passports or anything else, within usually 1 to 2 business days. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, Paul. Well, as we've been speaking, that website has been on the screen. You can get the information, various information about what exactly they do and how they can help you. And as he says, you can come down to the outreach, which will be in January. So more interesting speakers coming up in the next few weeks as we do the closing titles. We'll list just a few of those. In the meantime, this is Paul and Paul at the Padia City Expats Club saying goodbye. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Thank you.